style, and we're going to learn how to negotiate with each style and how to identify what style the individual is negotiating in. And then you're going to determine the best negotiation style that you should use to adjust to the other party. We call that determining the best negotiation strategy. So I'll go ahead and get started here. If you look on the screen, we recently did a study of 250 professional Latinas because I wanted to know what is the greatest fear of Latinas when negotiating. And Latinas came back, and I had them rank the different fears. And the number one fear is Latinas felt they didn't know how to ask. 97% of them didn't know how to ask for what they wanted. And a lot of that comes from just not having the tools, because what we notice is after they go through the training, the Latinas go through training of negotiation, around 95% of them feel so much better because now they know how to ask. So it's not that Latinas are not necessarily confident, because we're very confident in many ways. It's just without the tools, we don't feel confident. And once given the tools, then we can move forward and ask for what we want. 92% feared that when they do negotiate, they ask for too much. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we don't know our own worth sometimes, or we don't know who to ask about what we deserve or what it is that what is expected, what is a norm in the industry. And sometimes other women don't know. My recommendation is go to the men. The men know. Ask them questions. Ask them. Get to know and build allies in your organization that are male and that are higher up, and ask them for recommendations. Ask them tell them, be straight up and say, how much does this person make, or how much does this position make? And build a relationship with them, because you need the information from men more than from women, because if we ask other women, we're all pretty much in the same boat. So that way we can find new information. And 90% feared that they might be perceived as too aggressive. And this comes, ladies and gentlemen, from the reality of double bind, we call it, a backlash on women and Latinas, which means that when we're too nice, we're seen as weak. And when we ask for what we want and we don't do it correctly, we are seen as witches, as mean, as aggressive. Therefore, women get stuck and Latinas get stuck on, what do I do then? So there is a strategy, and maybe we can do another webinar in the future where you learn how to ask in a way that's more feminine, where you don't have to give up your feminine qualities and actually can leverage them. So I have a poll question for everyone. That poll question is, when negotiating, do you feel you can flex negotiation styles and adapt your style as needed? So if you look on your screen, you can just pick yes or no if you feel that you can flex negotiation styles at any given time and adapt your style as needed. So if you can go ahead and answer that question, we'll wait a minute and pull up the answer so we can see here what our women and men are feeling or thinking about this. Let's see here. So if, when you're negotiating, do you feel you can flex negotiation styles and adapt to your style, adapt your style as needed?
Okay, it looks like we have a 59% of the attendees said yes and 41% said no.
Oh, okay, well, that's great. 51% said yes. That is fabulous that they can adjust, because that is the most important element of negotiation, is being able to adapt your negotiation style to the other parties. You can't expect the other party to adapt to you, although in some competitive negotiations, you do want to take the lead and not respond to them, and we'll talk about that. But for the most part, you need to understand how to move into the different negotiation styles. So we're going to go through that next. So in negotiation, there are 5 negotiation styles. I'm going to go through each one, and then I'm going to show you and tell you how to negotiate with each one. The first negotiation style is a competitive style. And this is the kind you see where the other parties basically think it's either you or me, and I'm going to win. It doesn't matter at what cost. And what that means is not necessarily that they're mean or they're out to get you. It means that they are out to win regardless of if they have to step on you. They don't necessarily want to, but if you're in the way, they will. Nothing will stop them. And they're usually unwilling to cooperate. They place their needs above the needs of others. It's about them and only them, what they want. They try to manipulate the situation in their favor. They're usually more concerned with winning the fight than the best deal. And these are mostly ego-driven individuals who are driven by winning only, and also use competitive negotiation style as a tactic to scare you off, to throw you off your game. So you need to be able to identify when someone is negotiating with you competitively. For the most part, it's a tactic to see if you'll break. And if you break, oh, they'll have a field day with you. So you need to make sure, and we're going to go through this on how to negotiate with them, you'll learn, but be very, very aware. Competitive style is the dangerous style of negotiating and the kind you don't want to get into unless you have to. The next style of negotiating is avoiding. And avoiding is actually someone, and we all have experienced this, when you have someone that basically avoids you in the negotiation, either doesn't want to be there, doesn't have the desire to be involved whatsoever, or they try to sidestep it, they're ambivalent to what they want. And there's two reasons why someone would be in the avoidance style negotiation. Number one, they don't really care to negotiate with you. You don't have enough to offer, or they don't see it as important to come to the table. And you're going to learn what you need to do here is you cannot continue going after them. You need to build more leverage in order to bring them back to the table, because right now you don't have enough leverage to make them interested to negotiate. Number two is they are trying to avoid you because they don't want to deal with you. They're trying to, you might have enough leverage, but there might be other internal reasons in their organizations that they're avoiding you in the negotiation. So it's important to find out what's going on in the negotiation with the other individual, because you're never just negotiating with one person. You're negotiating with the entire organization. So it might be that person wants to give you what you want, but it might be their boss and their boss that don't or can't. So it's important for you to find out the internal political, interorganizational items that are going on, because that might be what's in your way to getting what you want. The third style of negotiating is an accommodating style. And this is the one we see a lot of women fall into. They accommodate because they're pretty much passive. They want to give you what you want because they fear conflict more than anything. So they will do anything to accommodate because they just want to get it over with and done the negotiation. And you need to be careful, because accommodating individuals will tell you what you want to hear at the moment to get out of the situation, but will most likely not follow through on what it is that they verbally promise you. It's not because they don't want to, it's because they really shouldn't have committed to it, but they do just in order to get away and to not cause any conflict. Then we have the collaborating negotiation style, and this is the best negotiation style. That is the win-win. That is when they're both assertive and cooperative. You state what you want, but there has to be a lot of trust in the individuals in order to move forward in a collaborating negotiation style, because if there's no trust, one person will take advantage of the other. So collaborating style is the one that takes the longest in a negotiation. It's the one where you start creating more options, you start finding new value, you really go into depth. And I would say you really have to choose your collaborating negotiation elements carefully, meaning that you have to make it worth your while, because it's very time intensive to do a collaborative negotiation, because it's more like a problem solving, finding different options. But it is the best, and where the top negotiation experts really fall into is the collaborating. They know how to play that game and really do it well. The last negotiation style is a compromising. And this is the one I would say that a large percentage of women, even more than accommodating, they go with the compromising because it sounds fair. It sounds like, oh, we'll both compromise. But in reality, what you're doing is you're sacrificing when you're compromising, because you're still giving something up. So what I recommend is you don't need to compromise. You can actually say, well, we don't have to give up anything. Why don't we find new ways to create new values so that we can actually get a negotiation where if we do have to give up something, we are actually creating other elements where we can add more, so we don't walk away with less, but actually with more. So these are the 5 approaches. They call them negotiation styles, negotiation strategies. You'll hear them named different ways, but these are the 5 different ways of going into a negotiation. Now, if you are going to negotiate with someone that's competitive style, you can identify them very easily when they come towards you. They are aggressive, and they don't really care what you have to say. They don't really care what you want or need. If you are negotiating with one that's a competitive style, there's different elements to follow. Number 1, you ask questions, you listen, and you shut up. Why do you shut up? Because any information that you give them, they will use against you. Because information is the most powerful tool that you have in a negotiation. Information is power. If you talk, you automatically give them information, and they will use it, they'll twist it, they'll turn it around. So you just kind of have to be quiet, listen to what they have to say, and make sure that you don't give them any leverage. You don't give them any power by giving them information. The more they talk, the more you have information where you gain power. Stick to your principles. What that means is in a competitive negotiation is the area where most women really struggle with, and in my courses, when we have negotiation style exercises, the women have a very difficult time playing the competitive role or negotiating with the competitive role, because this is where you really have to stand up for yourself, because if you are weak or they sense a moment of weakness, they will take advantage of that. So here you have to stick to your principles. This is when I say you have to bring that side of you out that you use with your boyfriends or your husbands when they really make you mad. You have to tap into that energy, because you really have to make sure that you do not allow them to disrespect you. The only way they gain respect towards you is by you standing up for yourself and sticking to your principles. That is the only way. You don't have to be adversarial. You just have to make sure that you say I'm negotiating with someone named, Mark or something. I say, Mark, I appreciate your opinion, but I completely disagree. And I would appreciate that in the future you would address me in a more respectable way. In other words, you're not being aggressive, you're just being assertive, and that is the way they actually turn around and respect you. The third element here is you have to emphasize your leverage. Usually competitive style, you're negotiating with the male energy, the male trait. So what you do when you negotiate with that type of energy, they don't want to connect. They don't want to build a relationship. They want to get down to business, and they want to win. So you need to let them know uphand, first up is that, look, this is the deal, and this is my leverage. Basically, if you need to say you know certain people, if you need to say that you're the decision maker, whatever power you have, that you show them that you have that power over them even, you need to put it on the table, because that is the only time they'll take a step back. So you need to show your leverage. You need to emphasize to them, look, I don't want to play the game, but I will play the game with you, and this is my leverage, and I'm not going to back down, and let's do this. So this is the most difficult style of negotiating, but that's the only way you gain respect once again, and then they'll turn around, and sometimes they turn to more collaborative after you've earned their respect. So the next negotiation style is the accommodator style. If you're negotiating with an accommodator, you have to make sure you get their commitments in writing, ladies and gentlemen. Get them in writing either via email. A verbal commitment is not enough with them. Like I mentioned earlier, they will commit, overcommit in order to accommodate at the moment, but they will back out most of the time because you don't have it in writing and they shouldn't have committed in the first place. You also have to be sensitive to their need to agree with you. They will agree with everything you have to say because they fear conflict or they don't want conflict. So even if they agree with you, continue asking them questions. So is this how you really feel? Is this what you really think? Ask them the same question 3 or 4 different ways to see if they consistently respond the same way, and look for their underlying needs. Are they really being honest with you, or are they just complying with what you say? I usually say, look, I understand that you want to accommodate, and I'll work with you on that, but you need to be honest with me. Is this the way you really feel? And I make them feel safe and comfortable. That's really important. And be sensitive that they place more emphasis on accommodators, the relationship. So at the cost of giving up certain elements. So at the end, these are the type of women, and we've all done it, where we give so much, we'll accommodate, and then the other side doesn't do the same for us, and then we resent them. I gave so much and they didn't do the same for me, and then we end up not talking to them or something. Make sure that they are okay with what they're giving, and their expectations are not for you to also concede the same, or that it's clear if it is, because if not, you're going to get yourself into trouble. All right, the next negotiation style is the avoidance style. If you're negotiating with the avoidance style, it's actually every negotiation style, there is a time that you might want to use it. They all serve a purpose. And if you're negotiating with an avoidance style, you have to focus on the most important items first. In other words, if someone's avoiding you or they don't want to negotiate, when you do get them at the table, make sure that you discuss the most important items first, because they might be out of there after the third negotiation item. So you want to get that out of the table, get that out of the way first. You also want to probe for interest, for their needs, because they're avoiding for a reason. So you want to make sure, is it that you don't have what they need and so they're trying to avoid the negotiation, or is it that you're asking for too much, or is it that they don't have enough power and they don't want to say it? You need to really build a relationship with the avoidance style in order to get the truth from them, because their way of dealing with issues is by avoiding. Now, you do want to use the avoidance style yourself if you ever are at fault at something. For example, the airlines, they have an airline that went down and caused a lot of injuries. They don't want to negotiate. They're going to take the avoidance style. They want to accommodate. They're going to actually go against the avoidance style. They're going to accommodate as fast as possible because they don't want a lawsuit. So they will not avoid, they will accommodate. And so accommodating will be a good strategy to use when it's your fault. Okay, and avoidance is a negotiation strategy that you might want to use when you're not ready to negotiate with somebody yourself. So each negotiation style has its purpose, and you can use it to your advantage. And we're going to go through how deciding which negotiation style to use. Now, if you're negotiating with a compromising style, you have to add more value. What I mean by that is that, say, for example, I'm negotiating with someone who's compromising style, and they'll say, Yasmin, okay, yes, let's compromise. I'll give in halfway, you give in halfway. My job is to say, you know what, that would be great, but we're still sacrificing certain elements of our deal. So instead of us giving up halfway, why don't we see if there's other areas we can do business? How about, do you have this because I need this? I have this, do you need this? So you start finding new ways to create more business, so that now you might have to give up on the one item you were talking to, but you have 4 other areas where you have now built new value and created new value in the negotiation. So you don't walk away feeling that you actually compromised. You actually were able to create new value. So that's the way you can take the compromising style into a different arena, is creating new value. Now, the collaborating style is, once again, the negotiation style that's the best and the most effective. What you do here is there's a lot of trust between both parties. You sit at the table and you get to the core of the issues. What is it that we really need to figure out here? What are the different solutions? It's a problem-solving kind of negotiation style. The best example that I experienced with the collaborating negotiation style is when GE was negotiating with the NFL. I'm sorry, the NBC was negotiating with the NFL, and the NFL was charging $600 million for Monday Night Football viewing, and NBC wanted to bring NFL back to Monday Night Football to NBC channel. So instead of trying to negotiate the price down of $600 million, they said, let's collaborate and see how can we create new value. Well, NBC is owned by GE, and GE is in the lighting business. So there's 30-something NFL stadiums. They all need lighting. So why not give the contract to GE to add more value? Well, GE is in the alarm system business, and all the NFL stadiums need alarms. So why not create another contract for alarm systems? GE is in the medical equipment business, and NFL players and doctors need medical equipment. So why don't we create a new contract for medical equipment? And they searched all areas. It took them months and months, but at the end of the day, they ended up walking out with a $1.2 billion deal because they created new values. NFL got $600 million, exactly what they asked for, and GE was able to get $700 million worth of other contracts that they did not have when they walked into the negotiation. So collaborating is the best negotiation because not only do you create new value, you find other ways to do business. So which strategy do you use? How do you go about determining what negotiation strategy you use? Well, if you see here on the screen, you'll see we have a collaborating, accommodating, avoidance, and competition or competitive, and then compromise in the middle. What you do is you really look at the more important your relationship is with the other party, the less you're going to negotiate competitively, and the most you're going to negotiate collaboratively. And so there's actually a test you can take and a quiz that you can follow that will, if you answer these questions, it will determine what negotiation style you should use. So let's start with the competitive strategy negotiation style. It's basically defined as I win, you lose attitude. So when is it the best to use? Well, you can use it when you must have what you want. In other words, if you're going to negotiate for a car and you're going into a dealership, you don't necessarily care to build a relationship with the salesman or saleswoman of the dealership. It's a one-time shot. So this might be the time you want to use competitive style. So you ask yourself the following questions. Is your interest in the outcome more important than the ongoing or future relationship with the other party? If your answer is yes, then this is probably the strategy or the style you should use. If the answer is no, then you should not use this strategy. And the next question is this a one-time negotiation? So if you're going to go into a car dealership and you ask yourself these two questions, is your interest in the outcome more important than the relationship? Well, yeah, I want to get a good deal on the car, and I don't necessarily care to build a relationship. So yes, the outcome is more important. Is this a one-time negotiation? Yes, it's a one-time negotiation. I'm not going to go back and negotiate with this person. So competitive negotiation style would be the best style for me to apply to that particular situation. Now, let's say I'm going to negotiate with a client, a client that I've been with, that I've had for the past 10 years. I'll go to the competitive style questions and ask, is my interest in the outcome more important than the ongoing or future relationship with the other party? No, it's not. I want to have this client for another 10, 20 years. So I would put no on that answer. Is this a one-time negotiation? I would put no. So that would tell me I have two no's, and that means this is not the best negotiation style to apply to this particular negotiation because it wouldn't be in my best interest. So you go through each style. We go to accommodating style, accommodating strategy. And what that is, it's defined as I'll let you win in exchange for some other benefit I hope to gain now or later. Or I will let you win because I don't want to deal with the potential conflict, the way the airlines did, as I mentioned earlier. So when is it best to use? When you have done wrong and you want to settle quickly. So this is kind of like when you have messed up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband, or you just want to accommodate because you already screwed up, so you want to make sure and just, okay, honey, or in a situation where you know you did wrong. These are the questions that you ask yourself to determine whether or not this is the appropriate style. You would ask, are you willing to lose in order to gain something more important? So, for example, if it's the negotiation with your mate, are you willing to lose in order to gain something more important? Yes, I'm willing to lose to be able to gain, to build that trust, or to remain that trust that I can admit when I'm wrong. Is preserving or enhancing the relationship very important? Yes, it's very, very important. That's my mate, my husband. Okay, then this is probably the most appropriate strategy to use. If I would have answered no, then it wouldn't be the best style to use. Okay, so if we move on now to the compromising strategy, we look at what is the compromising strategy. It's defined as I don't care who wins, I just want to get this over with quickly. When is it best to use? When expedience matters most, when you want to get it fast. I compromise when I, just want to make a decision fast. If I don't really, actually I compromise when I necessarily don't care, like if I'm going, to the movies with someone. I don't necessarily care what movie I'm going to. It's a company I'm with. It's like, okay, I'll go to that movie. So, or anything that you really don't necessarily care or you want to get it over with done. The compromise strategy question is, are you seeking a quick and easy end to the negotiation? If you answer yes, then this is okay. This is the okay style to use. If you answer no, then you don't want to use the style. You move on to the next or see what other style is more appropriate. The collaboration strategy is we can both win by making the pie bigger. When is it best to use? When you want to create a bigger pie. And that's when I gave the example about the NFL and NBC GE creating a bigger pie from a $600 million deal to a $1.2 billion deal. That is creating a bigger pie, or actually creating 2 or 3 pies from it. So the strategy question you want to ask yourself is the outcome just as important as the relationship? Well, yeah, in the case of the NFL, NBC, GE, they're talking about money. They want the most money that they can each make, yet they're going to have to be in business for the next 6 years with this contract. So yes, the relationship is very, very important as well as the outcome. So they would answer yes to this question. It's just as important. The next question is, do you have the time required to find creative solutions that meet both parties' needs? Well, if you're negotiating for that much money, you better make sure and make the time, because that is 6 years and $600 million or $1.2 billion you're dealing with. So yes, if you didn't have the time, then you most likely wouldn't have the relationship be that long. Usually time commitment in a negotiation, the time you invest in it, is really determined by the dollar amount and the longevity of the relationship. So here, if you have enough time, you go with it. If the outcome is important as a relationship, you go with it. If you answer no to any of these 2 questions, then collaborative strategy might not be the best way to go. Now, the avoidance strategy is defined as, I don't really want to negotiate at all. When it's best to use this, when you're not ready to negotiate or you don't care to negotiate. Sometimes it's best to call what I call a caucus, and that is a break in the negotiation, or you step away and you come back and you say, you know, can we meet a week later? I need to do some research. You are never, ever negotiate if you are not ready, unless you absolutely have to. It won't hurt to ask for an extension. The worst they can say is no. It is not looked upon as a weakness unless you're negotiating with someone that has more power than you. If you're negotiating with someone that has more power than you, asking for an extension might look as if you're not prepared. It depends who you're negotiating with. But if you're negotiating with someone at your same power level, then you must ask for an extension. You must ask for a caucus or something if you're not ready to negotiate, because you need to be prepared. If you walk in there without being prepared, you will walk out losing more than you would have or should have. The best questions to ask yourself to determine whether avoidance strategy is the best style to use is, do you need more time to prepare for the negotiation? If the answer is yes, then you should ask for a caucus or you should avoid the negotiation. Can your needs be met without negotiating? If they could, maybe you don't have to negotiate. This is exactly why sometimes you don't get people to call you back. You submit bids in for a proposal, and then at first they're very welcoming and they respond before you submit your bid or proposal you submitted, and then they don't anymore. Well, most likely they don't find the need to negotiate with you anymore because maybe they already selected another proposal. We would hope and wish they would let us know, but sometimes they don't. But them not responding tells you that their avoidance is that obviously they have gone with somebody else, or there's no need anymore. Are the ends not worth the effort of a full-blown negotiation? This is why sometimes you also don't get people to respond. A lot of people out there believe that it's better not to respond than to say no. I don't know why. I don't agree with that personally. I respect people if they tell me no much more than if they avoid me. I think it's a level of respect that you give someone. But if someone doesn't, if you determine someone has a difficult time saying no, if you never heard of one particular person saying no, when they don't respond to you when you ask them a question, it's most likely the response is no. And that's why they're not responding, because if the response is yes, they would respond. So that's when you determine by asking yourself these questions whether or not the avoidance strategy is the best way to go. So with that said, these are the different strategies and the different styles and selecting which one to use. Now, actually, I'm going to go into, since we have about a good 8 minutes before we go into questions. I saved this slide for the end to see if we have time, and I'm glad that we do, because there is a strategy on how to ask for something in a way that there is no backlash for women, for Latinas. There's a way, it's called the sandwich framing method, and I suggest that you take a pen out right now and get your notebook out and take these notes, because this will help you ask for what it is that you want anytime, anywhere, whether you're negotiating with a man or a woman. It doesn't matter. It's a tool that works with everything, and it's has been very successful. A sandwich framing method is, if you think of a sandwich, you have two breads and you have the meat in the middle. So the meat is what you need, what you're going to ask for. Okay? But what you will realize is that people, whatever you're going to ask for in a negotiation, you need to make this whole negotiation ask. There has to be a benefit in it for them. You have to determine what's in it for them. You actually have to make the whole negotiation about benefiting them. That is the only way that you are almost guaranteed that you will get what you want. And in order to do that, the sandwich method, framing method, helps you. So I'll give you an example. Say, for example, I am working at a company and I need to move. I want to move to a different position. I want to apply for a position in a different department that's one step above my current position. But my boss has a huge ego, and he takes everything very personal, and he's been great, but me telling him I want to leave him for another position will completely just burn his ego. And I need his support. I need his recommendation to recommend me for this position in order to get the job, this other position. So how am I going to get my ego-driven boss to support me and recommend me for another position in another department? Well, this is how you position it to negotiate with him and do your ask. You think of a way that I think of a way that my boss has benefited me, has helped me become the hardworking individual that I am now. So let's say that he coached me once a month. We would sit down on a Friday and he coached me on everything I did wrong or everything I did right, or however I want to frame it. It's all about how you frame it. And it really helped me become better. So I'm going to use that element of him helping me as to show appreciation to him. So I'm going to focus on that. So that's my appreciation I'm going to start with. And then how can you have to ask yourself, how can me getting this new job help my boss? How is he going to benefit from me getting this new job? Well, it could be that I can go, brag about him, about how he prepared me for this new job. I can tell people how he develops talent. I can, basically more than anything, I can make him look good, which is what bosses want, is to look good by bragging about his talent, development, capabilities. So I would create my plan, and I would go to him, and I would say, I would start with number one, the compliment, and say his name was John. I would say, John, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time one Friday a month to sit down with me and show me what I've been doing right and wrong and help me develop, because it's really benefited me and I've grown so much to become the woman I am today. And I have developed these skills, and it's because of you. I wouldn't have been able to do this because of you. Okay, so that's a compliment. Then you go to the ask. And because I feel like I've developed so much and I've grown, I feel like I'm ready to take the next step. And there is a position open in Mary's department on floor 7. And I think I'm ready for that now because you have prepared me so well. And I would love for you to help me grow as an individual. You've helped me grow so much as I am here. Now I need to go to the next level, and I really need your recommendation in order to move to that position. Okay, so now you have made your request. You're asking for his help. And then you close it by the compliment needs to reflect how he's going to benefit from your new position. So you close it by saying, once I get to this new position, I can actually, if you help me get into this new position, I can help you identify what next talent you would like to develop that would take my place, because I think that you have a knack for developing talent, and I would love for another individual to be able to develop the way I did, and people need to know your strength and talent development. So once I get to the new position, I'm just, going to tell everybody how great you are or something like that. And once you develop this new talent, as you develop new talent, everybody's going to know you as a manager who develops new talent. So you have now shown appreciation, you made your request, and you described the benefits of them helping you. So you have made it all about him, but really he's going to help you, and it'd be very difficult for him to say no after you have set it up and framed it in a way where he would benefit from it. So with that said, it's 10:43, so I can now open it up for questions. Elisa, are you there?
Okay, so if we have any questions, you can go ahead and type it, or you can raise your hand and see if we have any questions that pull up. So Yasmin can go ahead and answer that. Okay, I think we have a question from Anisa Perez.
Okay.
I went ahead and unmuted her. If you want to go ahead and speak,
Sure.
Anisa.
Hi, Anisa. How are you? Are you there, Anisa? Hello, hello. Hello.
Anisa, if you can't speak, you can go ahead and type the question so that we can see the question. Under the chat box. No?
No? Do we have any other questions? Anything, it could be about the actual presentation today or anything else having to do with negotiation, Latinas, women's style, stuff like that.
Okay, we have a question from Silvia, so I'm going to just go ahead and unmute her.
Okay. Hi, Silvia. How are you? How are you?
Oh, hi. Actually, I was trying to find the box, and I finally did, and that might be why people are not able to raise their hand, because I think the box was hidden, and people need to open up the box. My question really is more about, dealing with people that have been using the avoidance method. In other words, and really placing blame on you, really, as an organization. I have dealt with, I'll just be frank, with the Red Sox Foundation that has not agreed with my organization about some work that we're doing. And, so how do you get them to the table when they're not even willing to come to the table, and yet it's absolutely necessary that they come to the table?
Okay, is it absolutely necessary for them to come to the table? Are they on contract, or are they coming to the table willingly?
Well, that's the thing, is so it's my organization and two other organizations, including the Red Sox, and together we are contributing to the cost of some maintenance of fields, youth fields. And, the Red Sox Foundation doesn't necessarily agree with our advocacy position. They want our money, but they don't want to negotiate with us around, the work that needs to be done. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to get them to come to the table so that we can have, an honest conversation and a renegotiation of the contract.
Okay.
Right now, my organization is providing funding because more important that the youth have access to these fields than that the Red Sox or that, we be right. but this can't continue. So I'm trying to get them to come to the table.
Okay, well, there's different moves that you can use to get them to the table. I don't know the intricacies of this deal, but just at the outlook of what you mentioned, what you can do is you have to up the loss that they will take if they don't come to the table. So you have to either create a loss or build a loss. And what I mean by that, it could be that find out what's important to them. Is image important to them? If image is important to them and they're not coming to the table, and them not coming to the table is actually hurting children or not giving access for children to use these fields, then you want to use what it calls going to the media kind of move. And what that is that you get a third party involved and you allow this third party to let them know that the media heard about them not wanting to come to the table or not wanting to deal with this situation, and this is causing the kids not to come to the field. And if their image is important to them, then they will want to come to the table. It usually will take a third party, getting a third party involved who's a neutral party, to be the relayer of information, and make sure that whatever it is that can hurt them, you have the power, and not hurt them, I mean hurt them like image-wise or loss of money or someone that that might have leverage over them. Do you have any kind of leverage over them in any which way?
Well, really financial. And you're right. I mean, we certainly could go to the press. But, the Red Sox Foundation, I'm in Boston, they're a big deal. Red Sox is really a big deal in Boston, and they carry a lot of weight. People think that they're God and they can do no wrong. But, they do some nasty stuff, too, that people probably don't realize. And we've talked about going to the media. The problem is, and it's not just me negotiating here, I have a board of directors that is not necessarily on board because they're afraid. So then, that's another question is how do you deal with fear?
Oh, well, yeah, that's what makes it difficult. Well, the reality is, unless there's someone on the board who can get things done, you're going to have to step up the game to get anything out of the team foundation. I mean, I know I was married to an NFL player and did negotiations for the NFL, so I know how these professional athletes, and they do have a lot of power. But if you can get the board of directors to either make a choice. One, somebody there actually make something happen. In other words, it's like either the board of directors can make something happen, or they're going to have to let you or somebody else make something happen because it cannot continue the way it is. So what you're doing then is you're giving them the power of choice and saying, if you can make it happen, then go for it. This is our deadline. Let's create a deadline. And if you don't get it done by then we will take over. In other words, you're giving them the chance to make it happen, but if they can't do it, then you're going to have to, or whoever else is going to have to take initiative. And what I would do is I would create a story of, like, find a kid where not getting access to this field has really hindered his ability to his self-esteem or his ability to develop, or something where it's more personalized, and have this story relayed to whoever's in charge of this team or the foundation to say, the media is interested in picking up this story because they're not getting access to the field. This child, there's going to be repercussions. I mean, you have to make it personally emotional, where there's a big impact, and it's children are being hurt. If you can involve children in media and being hurt, most likely you can get them to the table. And if the board of directors has a better way, great. But if they don't, they need to step aside, because then it doesn't leave you any options. You're tying your hands.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you so much for the questions. We have a few other people that have some questions.
Okay.
That have raised their hands. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute Jennifer Garcia.
Okay. Hi, Jennifer. You there, Jennifer?
Okay. Well, let's see. So I have Janice Velasquez also on the line, so we can unmute her.
Janice, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Janice.
Hi, my question is probably you've heard this question before. And it's basically I'm at a very highly political environment where most of the time there is a committee and this committee already has their favorites. And I am trying to be their favorite, but I don't buy into the whole politics of the college. So
okay. That's difficult. Well, the reality in a situation like this, the only way to go about it is to build allies. To build allies that are in powerful positions, because that's the, I mean, what it comes down to is, doesn't even come down to what's right or wrong, as you know, in politics, or it comes down to who has the most allies. And the allies are the ones that are going to be the ones, you know, your PR machine, and get the support for you. Even if the other person, the favorites, might not have the best views, if they have the allies, it doesn't, I mean, that's basically how they win, especially in politics. It doesn't come down to who's right or wrong. It comes down to who has the allies. So it might be one that you might not be